The heat was painful. The ground burned with every step, and the air shimmered like it wanted to melt everything that breathed. People passed by quickly, heads down, eyes forward, pretending not to see Dot, but in the middle of the dusty street. Near the cracked stone fountain that hadn't given water in years, a girl sat with two small creatures. Her skin was pale blue, her hair dark and messy, sticking to her face with sweat. She looked no older than 16 in human years. Though alien aging was hard to guess, the creatures beside her were furry, thin, and breathing slow. Their tongues hung out. Their ribs showed. They didn't make a sound. One of them gave a soft, weak whine, like it had already given up. The girl whispered to them in a strange, gentle voice. She dipped her fingers into a rusty metal bowl. Dry. Not a drop, please, she said in broken common, her voice barely louder than a breath. Please, help them. People glanced at her. Then they looked away. Two alien merchants walked past. One sniffed and muttered, "Filthy beggars." A soldier in dark armor laughed and tossed a small stone at her feet. "Get lost, freak." The girl flinched but didn't move. She just wrapped her arms around the creatures tighter. "They are dying," she said. "They are. All I have." But no one stopped, until one man did. His boots crunched against the sand and metal dust. He had a human face, tired, bearded, tired. A large pack sat on his shoulders. His shirt was stained with sweat, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. He saw her. He saw them. He didn't look away. He walked over slowly and crouched down. For a moment, he said nothing. He just looked at the two creatures, thin, shaking, nearly dead. Then he looked at her. Her eyes were wide, alien-shaped, scared, without speaking. The man reached behind his pack and pulled out a bottle. A clear, half-full bottle of water. The girl gasped. The creatures stirred just a little. He unscrewed the lid and poured a little into his hand, cupping it carefully. Then he held it out to the first creature. It sniffed weakly. Then it licked, slow, desperate, grateful. The other creature raised its head and gave a faint sound. The man refilled his hand and let the second one drink. Only then did he speak. "You've got names?" The girl blinked. She didn't understand. He pointed at her. "You, Luma?" she whispered. He nodded. "I'm Jack." Then he pointed at the creatures. "Them." She smiled softly, though it was sad. "Mira and Nu. Nice to meet you," Jack said, and gave them more water. A small crowd had started watching. Some muttered. One shouted, "You'll regret helping her, human." Jack ignored them. Luma lowered her head. "They hate my kind." "Why?" She looked away. "Because I still care." Jack didn't understand. Not yet. He gave the last of the bottle to Mira and Nu, then wiped his hand on his pants. "I'm going to get you out of here." Luma looked up sharply. "Why?" Jack stood. "Because someone should." They walked through the edge of the settlement, moving past crumbling buildings and cracked neon signs. Jack carried Mira in his arms. The creature was too weak to move. Luma held Nu close to her chest. They reached Jack's tent at the edge of the rocky ridge. He opened it carefully and placed Mira inside, then helped Luma and Nu get comfortable. Inside the tent, it was slightly cooler. A small solar fan buzzed. Jack pulled out a first aid kit and checked the creature's vitals. Not expert work, but he had training. Mira's heartbeat was slow but steady. Nu's breathing was rough. "They need more water," Luma said softly. "I know," Jack replied. "I've got a purifier. I'll make more by morning." Luma stared at him. "You doing this?" Jack shrugged. "Why not?" "No one else stopped," she whispered. "Even my people. They say Myra and New are cursed. Jack frowned. They look like sick animals to me. Not cursed. Just abandoned. Luma's eyes filled with tears. They are sacred to my family. My mother threw me out for refusing to leave them. She said the sickness would spread, but I couldn't. I couldn't just leave them. Jack felt something stir in his chest. It's not pity. Something deeper. Something like respect. You did the right thing, he said. Luma looked at him, confused. You cared when no one else did, Jack said. That's rare. A long silence. Past then, from outside the tent, a whisper, then another. Jack froze. Luma's ears twitched. Someone was outside, watching, waiting, asterisk. Why did a human care more than her own people? The whisper outside the tent came again. Jack reached for the side pouch near his sleeping roll. He didn't grab a gun. He grabbed a flare. The soft, dry voice whispered again in a language Jack didn't understand. Then, footsteps retreating, he pulled open the flap, stepped into the cool night wind, and looked around. Shadows danced across the rocks. No one there, but someone had been watching. When he turned back, Luma was holding Mira and New tightly, shaking. Her wide eyes stared at the tent entrance. They followed me, she said softly. Jack knelt beside her. Who? She didn't answer right away. She just looked down at the two small creatures curled in her lap. Myra's breathing was slow. Again, New trembled even in sleep. They think the sickness will spread, Luma whispered. They think I'm cursed too. Jack looked toward the silent night. His face was calm, but his mind was turning. What kind of sickness is this? He asked. It's not sickness, she said quickly. Not like humans understand. Something old. A weakness. They say it comes when you love too much. Jack blinked. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Luma actually smiled for a moment. Then it faded. My family. My people. They think feelings are dangerous. Softness makes us weak. When Myra and New got sick, they told me to leave them. I said no. Her voice cracked. So they left me instead. Jack sat down across from her. He poured a bit of purified water into a small cap and handed it over. They're wrong, he said. Feelings don't make you weak. They make you worth saving. By morning, the tent smelled faintly of medicine, sweat, and hope. Jack had used up most of his bandages patching small wounds on Mira's back legs. New's breathing had improved with a few drops of an old painkiller he carried. The creatures weren't better, but they were still alive. That alone felt like a victory. Jack stepped outside to stretch. The camp down the ridge was waking up. Dust rose into the sky like smoke. Metal clangs and shouted orders echoed, and then he saw them. 3 figures, all aliens, standing at the top of the path. Watching his tent, 1 had armor, 2 wore dark robes. Jack didn't look away. They didn't either. Later, Jack and Luma walked into the market. Mira and New were left safe in the tent, curled in blankets under a fan. Jack wanted more medicine, more food, more water tablets. Supplies were low. Luma walked beside him with her head down. People stared. Some whispered. A few laughed. One older alien woman hissed as they passed. Shame, bringing filth into our streets. Jack stopped. He turned to the woman. She's not filth. The woman narrowed her eyes. You don't understand our ways, human. No, Jack said. But I understand right and wrong. He turned and walked on. Luma followed, silent but trembling. They reached the trade stall. A tall 4-eyed vendor blinked when he saw Luma. No, I won't sell to her. She's with me, Jack said calmly. No. Jack pulled out a coin reel medal. Rare. The vendor stared. Jack added, I'll pay double." The vendor hesitated, then nodded once. "You have 10 seconds." Jack quickly grabbed what he needed. Pills, bandages, dry food, salt tablets. He paid without haggling and walked away fast. Behind them, someone shouted, "You helped the traitor girl." More voices. More noise. They reached the tent just as a stone flew past Jack's shoulder. He didn't turn, but he heard the voices. "She's cursed. She should have let them die. She's a danger to all of us." Back inside, Jack closed the flap and locked it with a wire loop. Luma sat down, her hands shaking. "It's getting worse," she whispered. "They want me gone." "Not going to happen," Jack said, handing her a nutrient bar. "I don't understand you," Luma said suddenly. Jack raised an eyebrow. "You're not even one of us. Why do you care more than they do?" Jack thought for a moment. He looked. Admira and Nuhu were both breathing easier now. Then he looked at Luma. "I guess I just don't like bullies," he said. "And I hate watching someone good suffer." Luma stared at him for a long time. Then she nodded slowly. "I think. I was waiting for someone like you." Night came again. But it wasn't quiet this time. A sound woke Jack soft and fast. A scratch. He opened his eyes and saw the flap moving. Then a hand clawed and grape pulled it open. Jack sat up instantly and grabbed the flare. A hooded figure stepped in, holding a curved blade. But before Jack could throw the flare, a other shape moved behind the attacker and grabbed him. Luma, holding a metal pipe, swung hard. The blade dropped the hooded alien. Collapsed, Jack lit the flare. 3 more shadows ran from outside, vanished into the night. They tied up the attacker with cloth strips. Jack checked his arms. Tattooed symbols. "They're from a death cult," Luma said, her voice shaking. "They believe the creatures are evil. They kill anyone who protects them." Jack looked at the attacker's face. Calm, cold. He had a scar down his lip and no fear in his eyes. "They won't stop," Jack said. "No," Luma whispered. "They won't." Jack stood up. He looked around the tent. The creatures, the girl, the bloody knife. Then he made a decision. "We leave tomorrow," he said, "before they come back." They came at night to take the creatures away. The wind was quiet that night. Too quiet. Jack had heard wind every night since he arrived, howling through the rocks, pushing the dust through tiny cracks in his tent. But tonight, there was nothing. No wind, no sound, only silence. Jack sat near the tent's entrance, his hand resting on the old combat knife beside him. He couldn't sleep. Not after what happened the night before. He glanced at Luma. She lay curled beside Mira and knew. All 3 slept close, their breathing slow but peaceful. For once, they looked safe. Jack knew better. He listened, waited, and then heard it. A footstep, soft, too soft to be random. Then another. He grabbed the flare and the knife. Heart pounding. The flap moved. Jack leaped up and threw open the flap. No one was there, but something was wrong. He turned just in time to see a shadow moving near the back of the tent. A blade glinted in the dark. Jack didn't think. He ran. Behind the tent, 2 masked figures were already lifting Mira and Nu into a black sack. The creatures whimpered but didn't cry out. They were still weak. Luma screamed. Jack tackled the first one, slamming the flare into his face. The second drew a long metal rod and swung at Jack's back. Jack dropped to the ground, rolled, and sliced the rod-bearer's leg with his knife. The attacker fell back, hissing in pain. Luma grabbed a tent pole and swung it at the first one's arm, knocking the sack from his hands. Mira tumbled out, coughing, crawling weakly toward Jack. The attackers shouted something in their language and ran off into the dark. Jack chased them halfway down the rocky slope, but they were fast, and they knew the land better. He stopped, his breath heavy, his hands shaking. They were gone, but they would come back. Luma rocked new in her arms. The little creature had a cut on its side, but it was shallow. Mira was frightened, but unharmed. Jack rechecked the tent ropes, reinforced the flap. He placed makeshift traps, broken glass near the corners, wires attached to bells, a stun shocker at the entrance. "You fought them," Luma whispered, watching him. "For us?" Jack paused. "Of course I did. You could have run." "Saved yourself," Jack frowned. "I don't run from things that matter." Luma said nothing, but her eyes softened. That night, no one slept. In the morning, a message was left outside the tent. A simple scrap of cloth, a red handprint on it. Jack held it up and stared. "They're warning us," Luma nodded. "It means they'll be back. Stronger, more. Then we go." "Today?" Jack said. Luma looked at him, confused. "Where?" "There's a human outpost." 2 days east," Jack replied. "If we move fast and quiet, we can reach it before dark on the second day. But the desert? I've crossed worse." Luma hesitated. She looked down at Myra and knew. They're not strong enough to walk. "Then we carry them." They packed in silence. Jack rolled up his tent, tied it to his bag, and carefully placed the two creatures inside a small, soft-lined case. They looked up at him weakly, but didn't struggle. Luma wrapped a long cloth around her shoulders and covered her face. Her skin was sensitive to sun. Jack handed her a pair of old goggles. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded, and together they walked into the desert. The sun was brutal. Sand blew across their path, biting their faces and hands. Jack led the way with a map on his wrist screen, stopping only for short breaks. By midday, Luma was shaking. Jack handed her half a water tablet. "Don't chew. Let it melt." She did as he said, though her lips were cracked. Myra made a small noise from inside the case. Jack paused, reached in, and gave them drops of purified water. That was all he had left. "We'll make it," he whispered. "We have to." Night fell over the sands like a blanket of ice. Luma shivered. Her hands were turning blue. Jack lit a small fire behind a rock wall and set up a wind block. He handed her a heating pack. "Put this under your shirt." She did. Without a word, they sat together under a shared blanket. Mira and Nu slept between them. Luma broke the silence. "You don't even know them," she said. "Mira and Nu. You've never seen their kind before. You don't even know me." Jack stared at the fire. "I know enough. Enough to risk your life." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Yeah, I guess I do." She looked at him closely. "You're strange for a human." Jack smiled faintly. "You're kind for an alien." Luma laughed softly. It was the first laugh since they met. But then a sound cut through the air, a howl, far behind them. Not an animal, not natural. A hunting call. Jack stood quickly and looked to the west. "They're tracking us." The truth about the creatures and why they must die. The howl echoed for a long time. It was low, cold, and full of purpose. Not an animal's cry. It was a signal. Jack stood beside the dying fire, eyes locked on the darkness behind them. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just listened as silence returned. Luma's voice broke the stillness. "They're still coming." Jack nodded. They're getting closer." She looked at Mira and Nu, who were curled together in the carrying case. "They won't survive a fight." Jack pulled the flare gun from his belt and checked it. "One shot left. Then we keep moving. But first, I want answers." Luma looked away. "No more hiding," Jack said quietly. "I need to know what they aren't, why everyone wants them dead." Luma didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, "Because their blood can heal." They sat close to the fire again. Luma spoke slowly. "Mira and Nu are called Marone. They're sacred and old stories creatures born from skyfire and mountain springs. A long time ago, they were protectors of life. Their presence brought calm. Their touch healed wounds. But that was before science took over everything." Jack listened carefully. "And now? Now. Only the leaders know the truth," Luma continued. "The royal families and warlords. They captured the last few Maronu and kept them hidden. Studied them. Took their blood. Made secret medicines for only the powerful." Jack narrowed his eyes. "So why kill them now?" "Because," Luma said bitterly, "if people knew what Mira and Nu could do, the people would rise. The powerful would lose control, so they spread lies. Said the creatures were cursed, diseased, dangerous." Jack stared into the fire, jaw tight. "They made you an outcast. Just for loving them." Luma nodded. "I didn't want power. I just didn't want them to die. And now they're after you too?" "Yes," she said, "because I know the truth." By morning, the desert felt different. Still hot, still dry, but heavier. Like the wind carried warning, Jack and Luma moved fast, avoiding open paths. Jack checked his wrist map every few minutes. The human outpost was still a day away. Too far if they were followed, and they were followed, tracks in the sand. Scattered. Prints, broken stones. All behind them. Jack said nothing. But he carried the flare gun in his hand. Now at midday, Luma stumbled. Jack caught her. "You okay?" She nodded. "Just tired." He gave her a small bite of energy bar. No water left. Not even drops. "We'll stop at the cave up ahead," Jack said. "Rest for an hour. Then we push to the ridge." She didn't argue. The cave was shallow, hidden between two jagged rocks, cool inside. Sci-fi, least for now. Jack unpacked the case and checked Mira and Nu. Mira was awake, weak, but aware. Nu still slept, but his breathing was stronger than before. Luma knelt beside them and placed her forehead against Mira's. "You're so strong," she whispered. "You always were." Jack stood near the entrance, watching the sands, waiting. Then something caught his eye. A glint dot metal. Someone was watching from a distance. He raised the flare gun. Aimed, but the figure vanished. He lowered it. "We're out of time." Luma turned to him. "If something happens to me, take them to the humans." "Don't talk like that," Jack said. "You have to promise me," she said, voice firm. "They can't fall into the wrong hands again." Jack stared at her. "Nothing's going to happen to you." "You don't know that." "I know I'm not letting you die in a cave," he said. "You're not a curse, Luma. You're a fighter." She blinked, then gave a small nod. "Then let's run again," she said softly. They moved just before. The sun began to fall. The air cooled, but the ground still burned. Jack led the way, every step careful. They followed a narrow pass through dark stones, almost like a maze, then dash movement. A figure stepped out from behind a rock. Another appeared behind them. Then another, for in total, all armed, faces covered. Jack raised the flare gun. "Stay back." One of the masked figures stepped forward. "Give us the beasts," he said in a rough voice. "No, you don't understand," the man said. "They belong to the old blood. You're playing with powers that don't belong to you." Jack didn't lower his weapon. "I'm not giving them to anyone. They're property," the man said. "Living medicine. Tools." "They're not tools," Jack said. "Their lives, their threats, their miracles." Silence. Then the man nodded to his partner. The second attacker raised a blaster, Jack fired the flare. It hit him in the face, exploding in bright white. Fire, screaming, chaos. Jack tackled the leader, slamming him into the rocks. Luma grabbed a sharp stone and threw it at another's leg. The attackers stumbled. Jack shouted, "Run!" They ran. They didn't stop until the stars came out. Until the wind returned. They climbed a ridge. And finally saw it, lights in the distance. Towers, walls, the human outpost. Jack dropped to one knee. Luma fell beside him, breathing hard. Mira and Nu stirred. "They're safe," she whispered. "We made it." Jack smiled faintly, but deep inside, he knew. This was just the beginning. The desert doesn't forgive weakness. Or kindness. They were close. Jack could see the blinking lights of the human outpost far ahead, small red dots blinking through the desert air. One more ridge, maybe a mile or two left, but his legs were trembling. His throat was dry as sand. And Luma. She had fallen. She lay in the sand beside a dry stone, her hands trembling. Her goggles had cracked. Her face was burned red from the sun. Her lips moved, but no words came. Jack dropped beside her. He pulled a cloth from his bag, pressed it to her forehead. "Luma," he said, his voice hoarse. "Stay with me." She blinked. I'm sorry." Jack looked at the case. Mira and Nu were still alive, but barely. Weak sounds, little movement. He reached for his bag. He knew it was empty, but still, he checked. Just in case. Nothing, no water, no food. Just one syringe of emergency stim gel. Jack looked at Luma, then at the creatures. He had to choose. The sun was lower now, but it still burned the land like fire. Jack lifted Luma into a half-carry. She was light, but his own body was failing too. His back ached, legs weak. His lips cracked when he breathed. Still, he moved one step, then another. Then he stopped. Something was wrong. The ground shook slightly. Just a little, but enough. Then he heard it. A growl. Deep, hungry taunt from behind the rocks. Jack turned slowly. A desert predator stepped into view. It had 6 legs, glowing yellow eyes, and a long mouth filled with curved fangs. Its skin looked like cracked leather. A sand stalker. Jack had heard of them. Never seen one. Now he wished he hadn't. It stared at him, at the creatures in the case, at Luma, limp in his arms. It knew they were weak. It smelled the struggle. It began to move closer. Jack lowered Luma carefully to the ground behind a rock. He grabbed the flare gun, but it was empty. He had fired the last shot the night before. He looked for anything: stones, sticks, metal, just sand. The stalker moved, slowly, like a hunter with no fear. It wasn't rushing. It knew he couldn't run. Jack stood tall, arms wide. "Come on then," he growled. "Try me." The creature paused, then it lunged. Jack rolled to the side, grabbed a sharp rock, and slashed at its leg. It roared, spun, and knocked him down with its tail. Pain exploded in his side, but he didn't. Let go of the rock. He stabbed once. Twice, the stalker shrieked, but it didn't run. It pounced. Again, a flash of blue light. The creature froze mid-lunge, then collapsed, twitching, then still. Jack blinked. A tall woman in desert armor stood behind the fallen beast, a smoking shock rifle in her hands. She wore a blue patch on her arm, human outpost colors. She lowered her rifle. "You all right?" Jack coughed and stood slowly. "Not really." "Is that an injured alien girl with you?" "Yes." "Those 2 creatures, are they Morono?" "Yes." Her eyes narrowed. She tapped her radio. "I've got a live human, an alien female, and 2 Moronias, real ones. East Ridge. Sending coordinates now." Jack collapsed to his knees. Help had come. Finally, inside the medical dome of the outpost, Luma lay on a clean white cot. Her skin had been treated for burns. Her hands were wrapped in cooling pads. She slept deeply now, breathing steady Jack. Sat beside her, a hydration pack hooked to his arm. Mira and Nu were placed inside a special recovery pod warm. Safe and quiet. Their heart rates were being monitored by two curious techs, both whispering in awe. A human officer stepped in, gray beard, hard eyes. Worn uniform, name's Commander Vance, he said. You're the one who brought them here? Jack nodded slowly. Yeah. The commander pulled a chair. You know what you're carrying? Jack looked at Mira and Nu. I do now. They're worth more than starships, Vance said. Their blood can cure disease. Real disease. Cancer, plague, war wounds, everything. Jack stayed silent. People have killed for less, Vance added. I've noticed. Commander Vance leaned forward. The girl, Luma, she's not one of us. I know, but she stayed with them. Jack nodded. She gave up everything for them. And you gave up everything for her, the commander said. Jack looked away. No one else would. That night, Luma woke up. Jack was still beside her. She looked at him, eyes heavy. We made it. Jack smiled. Yeah, you did. She looked at the pod holding Mira and Nu. They looked peaceful. Stronger already. Tears filled her eyes. They're going to live. Jack nodded. And you will too. Luma turned to him, voice quiet. You didn't have to do any of this. You're human. I'm not. Leaned back and whispered, doesn't matter. She stared at him, he added. You never left them behind, so I never left you. Asterisk, a human base. And a hard choice. The human base felt too clean. White walls. Quiet halls. Air so cold it stung Jack's skin. He had spent too long in the dirt. The heat, the wild. Now he was surrounded by blinking lights, polished boots, and people who didn't know what he'd just lived through. Luma walked beside him, still tired, still wrapped in healing wraps. But standing on her own, they had given her a simple white tunic. She clutched the edge of it, nervous. Her eyes scanned every corner like she was still in danger. Jack placed a hand gently on her shoulder. It's all right. You're safe here. She gave a small nod, but didn't look convinced. Behind them, a thick glass wall separated them from the sealed room where Mira and Nu rested. Machines beeped gently. The creatures looked stronger now. They were even sitting up. But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Commander Vance led them into a quiet meeting room. He stood by the window with his hands behind his back. Two scientists waited inside. A woman with sharp eyes and short hair, and a man who looked like he hadn't smiled in years. Jack and Luma sat down. Vance cleared his throat. We've run tests. What you brought us. It's real, Jack nodded. I told you that. The female scientist leaned forward. The healing ability of the Morenu is incredible. Their blood reacts with human cells instantly. It repairs tissue, boosts the immune system, even stops pain signals. The male scientist added, if we could breed them, we could save millions. Luma stiffened. Jack noticed. Breed them? Jack asked, voice flat. Yes, said the woman. We want to start with blood samples, but eventually, if we can understand their genetics, cloning might be possible. No, Luma said quietly. Everyone looked at her. I won't let them become tools, she whispered. They're not machines. They're not products. They're alive. Vance nodded slowly. We understand your feelings, but sometimes sacrifices must be made. Jack narrowed his eyes. They already sacrificed everything. The room went quiet. After the meeting, Vance walked Jack down a long hallway. Listen, the commander said. You've done something amazing. We're grateful. The world will be grateful." Jack said nothing. But the girl Lumashi doesn't understand how things work here. We have rules, responsibilities. Jack stopped walking. "Say what you mean. We need her. Permission to begin our research, and if she won't give it willingly." Jack stared at him. "You'll force her?" he asked. Vance didn't answer directly. "We'll find a way." Jack clenched his jaw. "That's not what I fought for." Vance turned to face him. "What did you fight for, Jack?" Jack didn't answer. That night, Jack sat by Luma's side in the guest quarters. She held a cup of warm tea in her hands, but didn't drink. "They want to use them," she said quietly. "I know. They want to take their blood, their lives, everything. I won't let them," Jack said. Luma looked at him. "Even if they say it's for a good cause." Jack leaned forward. "Good doesn't mean easy. You don't kill something. Gentle to help the cruel." She looked down. "Then we have to leave." Jack sighed. "It won't be that simple. We're inside a human military base. They're watching us," Luma whispered. "I'd rather run again than see Mira and Nu locked in a cage." Jack didn't say it out loud, but he agreed. The next day, something unexpected happened. A medic rushed into Jack's room. "Come quick," she said. "It's Myra. She did something strange." Jack followed her to the observation room. Inside, Myra had crawled to the edge of the glass. A soldier was sitting nearby, arm broken in a training accident. He hadn't moved much in hours, but when Myra placed her paw on the glass, something pulsed in the air. The soldier gasped. He stood. His arm went, swollen and blackened, was healing in front of everyone. A miracle. The scientists stared, whispering, frantically, writing notes, taking scans. Jack stared too, but not in wonder, in fear. Later, the base began to buzz. More officers, more talk of priority samples, more security around the creatures. Luma grabbed Jack's hand.
"Here."
"Going to take them." "I know," he said. "Then we have to go tonight." Jack didn't hesitate. At midnight, Jack disabled the hallway cams with a trick he learned during his soldier days. He carried Mira and Nu in a covered bag while Luma followed close. They avoided patrols, passed through service tunnels, and reached the edge gate. Just one guard. Jack walked up, calm. The guard looked sleepy. "You're not supposed to be here, sir." Jack smiled. "I know." Then he punched him in the face, fast, hard. The man crumpled. They ran into the night, into the cold. Desert again. But this time, Jack smiled. Because this time, they weren't running alone. They were running with purpose. Asterisk. The world will know because the human-cared dawn broke slowly over the desert. The sun rose like fire behind the hills, lighting the sand in red and gold. Jack stood at the top of a rocky ridge, holding a small black transmitter in his hand. He had rewired it using parts from a broken drone and an old radio. It was fragile, but it would work. It had to work. Luma sat nearby with Mira, and Nu curled beside her. The two creatures looked stronger now. Their eyes were bright and their movements quick. They weren't sick anymore. They were healing. They were alive, and the world still didn't know. Jack looked out at the vast open sky and hit the button. A red light blinked, recording. His voice was clear, steady. "My name is Jack Mallory, former scout of the Frontier Corps. 4 weeks ago, I found something in the sand." He held up a small image. Luma, holding Mira and Nu in her arms, taken the night before. They were dying. Left behind, called, cursed by her people. Ignored by mine. He paused. But they were never a curse. They were the cure. He uploaded the full medical logs, the healing footage. The attack records the truth. He stared into the lens. And if you're hearing this, then you know what they tried to hide? Acute. Send. The signal burst into the sky, bouncing off satellites, relays, and news nets, across systems. Across worlds, the secret was no longer a secret. Back at the base, alarms rang. Inside, a cold command. Room Commander Vance stared at the flashing alert. Data leak detected. Unauthorized transmission incoming system-wide. A voice on the comm shouted, "Sir, he sent everything. The files, the video, the Morenu research." Vance gritted his teeth. Another voice added, "It's spreading. Civilian news feeds are picking it up." Vance slammed a fist on the table. He just started a storm. Someone whispered, "A storm did come." Within hours, people across colonies and planets saw the footage, saw the girl in the dust, the creatures licking water from a human's hands, the way their blood healed wounds, saved lives. The galaxy watched, and something changed by the second day. Messages flooded in. Where can I help? Why are they hiding this? We want to protect them. A group of alien scientists offered to support Luma and the creatures in a neutral lab. A human doctor spoke on a live stream, tears in her eyes. This could save billions. Protesters stood outside military centers with signs, "Moranu, our life, not property." She loved them when nitrogen monoxide one did. Thank you, human. The truth had spread, and it could never be silenced again. Jack and Luma didn't return to any base. Instead, they stayed hidden in the highlands of a neutral planet, safe, quiet, protected by volunteers who believed in the cause. One morning, Luma sat by a small campfire. Mira and Nu played nearby, chasing a wind ball Jack had made from cloth and sticks. She turned to Jack. "I thought I would always be alone." Jack shook his head. "You were never alone." She looked down. "You were the only one who stopped. The only one who gave water. You risked everything." "I'd do it again," Jack said. 1,000 times. Luma smiled. "You didn't just save them." He tilted his head. "You saved me," she whispered. Later that day, a drone landed. Nearby, a simple model painted white and gold. Peace colors. It held a note and a case. Jack opened the message. "You're not fugitives anymore. The Council has ruled no military can claim the Moronu. They are protected under galactic law." Your broadcast woke everyone up. You gave the people truth. Inside the case was a medal. Small silver, marked with a symbol of open hands. Jack blinked. Luma read it aloud. "For compassion in a time of silence." He laughed softly. "Never thought I'd get a medal for just giving water." She looked at him with shining eyes. It wasn't just water. Months later, on a new world, the first sanctuary for Moranu opened. It was green and full of life. Peaceful, Jack walked beside Luma through the trees. Other Moranu now ran free, rescued, found, cared for. Children laughed nearby, not afraid, just curious. A sign stood tall at the entrance. "Welcome to the Luma Sanctuary," because one girl believed they deserved to live, and below that, protected, respected, loved. Jack paused beside the sign and smiled. The world had turned. Its back on her once. Now, 'twas thanking her.